Good morning. My name is Erica Pickrell, and I use she, her pronouns. I serve this congregation as the leader of the slides team, and I organize game nights. I also help with the youth RE sometimes. I am co-leading our service this morning as worship associate. Our service leader this morning is Bridget Laflin. Welcome to our special place. At the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Quad Cities, we welcome all people into our beloved community of whatever age, race, class, ethnicity, physical ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or religious background. We welcome especially those joining us for the first time. We live stream our services, and those recordings are then saved in our UUCQC YouTube channel. If you do not wish to appear in these recordings, you may sit under the owl's nest by the bookshelves. We invite everyone to join us downstairs after service for coffee, snacks, and conversation. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning. My name is Bridget Laflin. I use she, her pronouns. Our opening words are from Louise A. Robeck. We come to this hour knowing that it is but an hour. Yet out of all the hours in the week, this one is set apart. An hour that is saved. An hour that is savored. It is time for us to recognize what gives life meaning. It is time to honor what we value. It is a time to celebrate our lives. Let us then celebrate, honor, and recognize that we might fully savor this hour that we have saved. As Erica lights our chalice, let us recite a unison reading written by Lisa Garcia Sampson titled The Great Turning, which appears in your order of service and on the video monitor. In these wild, historic, and uncertain times, we gather to remember who we are, who we belong to, and what we are called to do. As we light this chalice, we kindle the spirit of the great turning, the movement for justice alive in this nation today. May we feel it in our bones, and in the stillness of this hour, may we sense it calling our name. Please rise in body or spirit for our opening song, number 65 in your hardcover gray hymnal, The Sweet June Days. The lyrics will also be projected on the screen. Oh, okay. Gates will play it through once so we can learn the tune, and then we'll sing it together.
Please remain lifted up. In the spirit of love and fellowship, let us now acknowledge the holy in our midst by briefly greeting those around us, especially those we do not know.
Good morning, friends. How's everyone doing today? Good? Did we have a good week? Did anyone do anything exciting this week? Yeah? Cool. All right. So this month's theme, as you know, is Flourish Together, which means we help each other by working together, right? So we're going to read a story about a man that was trying to encourage people in his community to help one another. There are places in China where the mountains reach all the way up to the clouds. High on one of these mountains lived a wise old man. His name was Tian, which means heaven. There among the clouds lived Tian's friends, the cranes. Tian fed them and cared for them. The birds told Tian of the wonders they had seen on their flights down below. Tian was devoted to these birds, and they would do anything for him. That is why Tian was called Lord of the Cranes. One day, Tian decided to go down to the city. He wanted to see if people were remembering to be kind and generous. So the old man settled himself on the back of a crane and flew through the crowds. In the city, Tian met a beggar. "Would you be willing to exchange your clothes with mine?" asked Tian. The beggar was shocked. "Oh no, sir. Why would you give up your splendid robes for my torn old rags?" "I have come to test the people," Tian said. "No one must recognize me." Then the beggar understood that Tian was no ordinary man and gratefully agreed to exchange. Tian gave the beggar his blessing and went on his way. Day after day, Tian went begging through the streets of the beautiful city. Many wealthy people passed by, but no one seemed to notice him. Not a single person dropped a coin in Tian's cup. One evening, Tian arrived, tired and hungry, at a small inn. Wang, the owner, welcomed him. "What can I do for you?" "Could you give me a little something to eat and drink?" asked Tian. "I'm sorry, but I have no money to pay." Wang smiled cheerfully and waved away the apology. "Sit down, take a rest." Wang brought the old man a warm bowl of soup, rice, tea, and a plate of sizzling meat. Tian's heart was full, and his belly, when he left the inn that evening. On the following evening, Tian stood again at Wang's door. "Please, sir, could I have a sip of rice wine and a bit of jiuzia to eat?" he asked. "My pleasure, and don't worry about the cost," answered Wang. Tian ate and drank and smiled his thanks. From then on, Tian came every day to Wang's inn, where he was always welcome. Many months went by in this way. One day, Tian said to Wang, "I am deeply in your debt. You have been so good to me. I must find a way to repay you." Wang was quite surprised. "But you do not need to repay me. What I have to give to you, I have given gladly. It makes me happy when I can help someone." Tian smiled. "Nonetheless, I would like to repay you. Of course, I have no money, but I can give you something else." Tian untied a gourd from his walking stick. It looked like a water flask, but Tian used it like the finest sable brush to paint a picture of 3 cranes on the wall of the inn. Wang was astonished. "It's wonderful," he exclaimed. "Just wait, it gets better," said Tian with a smile. He started to sing and clap his hands, and the cranes began to move. One by one, they fluttered off the wall and danced to Tian's song. Wang's eyes and mouth were wide with astonishment. "Let your guests be merry," Tian said. "When they start singing and clapping, the cranes will dance." Tian turned to the door. "Wait, just who are you, good sir?" Wang called, but Tian just gave a friendly wave and disappeared. Soon, everyone in the city was talking about the wondrous dancing cranes at Wang's inn. More and more people came every day to marvel at the beautiful birds. Before long, Wang was one of the richest men in the city, but he always kept a seat free and a bowl of soup ready for anyone in need. One day, Tian returned. Wang hurried to greet him, sat him at the best table, and brought him a delicious meal. "Please tell me who you are," he begged. Tian didn't answer. Instead, he lifted his flute to his lips and played a melody that was so tender and beautiful it brought tears to Wang's eyes. "That was a melody from heaven," whispered Wang. "I thank you for allowing me to hear it. You have made me a rich and happy man. How can I ever repay you?" "Teach others to be kind and generous to the poor, as you have been to me," said Tian. "That is my only wish." Tian raised the flute to his lips and played the melody one last time. The 3 cranes stepped off the wall and knelt before him. Tian stroked them and said, "I thank you for your help, my friends. We will now fly home." He bowed to Wang. "Farewell, good sir." Tian flew on the back of the cranes up away from the city and into the sky. A great flock of cranes accompanied him. Wang stood watching the sky long after Tian and the cranes had disappeared. At least he knew who the unusual beggar really was. Deeply humbled, Wang returned to his inn for the rest of his life. Wang tried to fulfill the Lord of the Cranes' wish, telling all who would listen of his miraculous encounter with the beggar in disguise, and urged them to share with those less fortunate. Are we ready to go downstairs?
Good morning. My name is Ann Harrington. I am a member of the pastoral care team. At least that's my representation for today. As we gather, we pause to reflect on what lies in our hearts. In this time of sharing, we take a moment to recognize our personal joys and sorrows and to read from our book of joys and sorrows, those personal life events you have chosen to share with us. We have a couple of joys today from Mike and Mindy Pace. Becca received a scholarship from ANVETS for an essay that she wrote, and her scholarship will be used at St. Ambrose. And from the Nichols family, we are all excited about summer camps. We have also a sorrow today. First of all, let me check upstairs. Do we have any joys?
Not at this moment.
Okay. We have a sorrow in the book from Jeff and Adrian Banks. John Kaha, a good friend from mediation class, fell on June 10th and is still on a feeding tube in the neuro ICU unit in Iowa City. Please send any goodness to him and family. How about sorrows online?
Not at the moment.
Nothing. Okay. For what has been shared and for what remains in the quiet sanctuary of our hearts, we are grateful. Let us become aware of the energy that brings us together in beloved community as we share a time of silent meditation. May we open our minds and hearts to a place of quiet, to a silent prayer for the healing of pain and the comfort of love. Following our quiet meditation, we will enter a time of musical meditation, during which you are invited to come forward and light a candle. May we discover a sense of peace and fulfillment in the quiet, in the music, and in the light.
This congregation is a theologically diverse religious community with membership open to all who are in accord with our values, mission, and vision. Our congregation is entirely self-governed through the democratic process. One of the privileges of our free church tradition is to provide all of the financial support for our many ministries from among ourselves. Generosity, therefore, is one of the spiritual values we recognize as central to our personal and our institutional well-being. This month's undesignated plate offering will go to the Project of the Quad Cities. We invite you now to participate in the blessing of giving as the ushers come among you to accept the gifts of the congregation. Please be as generous as you are able. For all the gifts of time and treasure that you give this congregation with sincere gratitude, we thank you. We continue with the words from John O. Donahue, titled, For a New Beginning. In out-of-the-way places of the heart, where your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you are ready to emerge. For a long time, it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness growing inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with the seduction of safety and the gray promises that sameness whispered, heard the waves of turmoil rise and relent. I wonder, would you always live like this? Then the delight when your courage kindled, and out you stepped onto new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dream, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not yet clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is at one with your life's desire. Awaken your spirit to adventure. Hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will home in a new rhythm, for your soul senses the world that awaits you.
So when we started the service today, who noticed what I did? Go ahead. Yeah, I turned over the hourglass. So the hourglass, or sand timer, is one of the oldest ways of measuring time. Why is it called an hourglass?
Because it's 58 minutes.
Yeah, this one is supposed to be an actual hour. However, like almost everything else in life, it isn't exact. It's a few minutes off, and I'm sure there's an entirely different sermon in there somewhere about imperfection and unrealistic expectations, but that's not our topic today. Thank goodness. Instead, I'd invite you to simply watch it for a moment. There's something strangely mesmerizing about an hourglass. We know exactly what is going to happen. The sand will continue to fall exactly as it has for hundreds of years. Grain by grain, moment by moment. We can't hurry it. We can't slow it down. We certainly can't stop it. We can only watch. Perhaps that's why the hourglass has become such a powerful symbol of time. It reminds us that whether we're paying attention or not, life keeps moving. Over the years, the hourglass has become a metaphor for time running out, for our lives running out. One of the most famous examples is in The Wizard of Oz. The Wicked Witch shows Dorothy an hourglass as she cackles, "Do you see that? That's how much longer you've got to be alive. It isn't long, my pretty. It isn't long." Yikes. No wonder we tend to think of an hourglass as something a little bit ominous. In my own life, I most often see sand timers while playing board games. We watch the sand slip through from the top to the bottom, and when the last grain slides down, your time's up. It's someone else's turn. And usually, if the top of the timer is completely empty, it means you didn't finish whatever you were trying to do in the time that you had. The sand is gone, your turn is over, and somewhere along the way, you lost. And if you're competitive like me, you may have learned to associate the emptying of the hourglass with frustration, or maybe even failure. And if you're less competitive, well, good for you. You may see it as a sign of change. Our turn ends, another begins. Either way, watching that vessel empty can make us a little uneasy because when the sand runs out, something changes. And the definition of stress is how we respond to change. The older I get, the more I realize that very little of the stress in my life has actually come from the changes themselves. More often it comes from resisting them, from wishing they weren't happening, from trying to hold on to a moment that has already begun slipping through my fingers like grains of sand. But like so many things in life, changing our perspective can completely change our experience. When my children were young, we often got together with another family to play board games. And at the end of every game, my friend Sarah, an elementary school teacher, would announce the results. She'd say something like, "Hillary won, I got second place, Quincy got third place, and Bridget learned the most." The person who lost the game was always celebrated as the one who learned the most. I remember laughing at that the first time I heard it. And I also remember thinking, that is brilliant. Now, I'll be honest, I still wanted to win, even against the kids. But Sarah understood something about children, and honestly about adults too. The stories we tell about success and failure matter. If children grow up believing mistakes are something to be embarrassed about, they begin avoiding anything they might not be immediately good at. They stop taking risks, they stop asking questions, they begin protecting themselves instead of growing. But if mistakes become evidence that we're learning, then suddenly losing doesn't feel quite so devastating. It becomes part of becoming. That little shift in perspective has stayed with me for years. It was echoed years later when I heard Jason Mraz sing, "I'm guessing it's again my turn to win some or learn some." I love that line. Because if I'm being honest, almost everything worth knowing in my life has come from the times I've gotten something wrong. I've learned more from apologizing than from being right, more from disappointment than success, more from listening than speaking, more from failing than winning. I certainly wouldn't volunteer for most of those lessons, but I wouldn't trade what they've taught me either. So what if we changed our perspective on the hourglass? What if instead of watching the sand fall and worrying that time is running out, instead of thinking about everything we're losing as the top empties, we began paying attention to everything we're gaining as the bottom fills? Because here's the remarkable thing. The sand never actually disappears. Not one grain of sand is ever actually lost. It has simply moved somewhere else. Maybe that's a better metaphor for our lives than we realize. The years don't disappear. The people who have loved us don't disappear. The lessons we've learned don't disappear. The kindness we've received, the courage we've discovered, the laughter we've shared, none of it is lost. It becomes a part of us. It gathers grain by grain into the foundation on which the next chapter of our lives is built. Sometimes we don't even recognize the most important grains while they're happening. We assume life will be remembered through the big moments, graduations, marriages, promotions, milestones. But years later, those aren't always the moments that shine most brightly. Instead, we remember an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, a conversation over coffee, someone who sat beside us while we cried, a child asking an unexpected question, a hymn that somehow found us exactly when we needed it. The ordinary moments quietly become extraordinary simply because they were filled with love. Each grain of sand represents one more opportunity to become a little wiser, one more opportunity to love a little better, one more opportunity to become the people we hope to be. There's still stress because change is inevitable. Perhaps there can be less fear. Perhaps instead of mourning the passing of time, we can become grateful for its fullness. There's a biblical phrase, "in the fullness of time." It speaks of trusting that even when we cannot yet understand what's happening, there is a larger story unfolding. That eventually what seems confusing or unfinished will make sense. That promises are fulfilled, not always on our schedule, but in the fullness of time. I've always loved that phrase. Because whether or not we understand our lives in explicitly biblical terms, most of us have experienced something like that. We look backward and suddenly realize that what felt like an ending became the beginning of something beautiful. We recognize that the painful season taught us compassion. The failure gave us humility. The uncertainty gave us courage. The relationship we never expected changed the direction of our lives. Only in hindsight do we see how the hourglass was quietly filling all along. After all, every one of us has exactly the same challenge. Whether we live to be 30 or 90, whether our hourglass is just beginning or well on its way toward emptying. Every grain will eventually make its journey from the top to the bottom. The question isn't whether time will pass. The question is, what will we do with it while it's passing? Will we fill our days with resentment or reconciliation? With bitterness or generosity? With endless worry about what might happen next, or with gratitude for the people sitting beside us today? Every grain is a choice. Every moment is an opportunity. And while we don't get to choose how many grains of sand we receive, we do have some say in what those grains come to represent. There's another thing I love about an hourglass. When the sand reaches the bottom, it isn't the end. The glass can be turned over, and a new chapter begins. Not because the old chapter didn't matter, but precisely because it did. Everything that has accumulated in the bottom of the glass becomes the beginning of what comes next. Life works much the same way. None of us begins a new chapter empty-handed. We carry forward everything that has shaped us up to this point. Every teacher, every friend, every heartbreak, every success, every mistake. Every person who believed in us before we fully believed in ourselves. They all became a part of who we are. That is one of the reasons I think community matters so much. We often imagine that we become ourselves all alone, but we know that's not true. I think we become ourselves in relationship. No one learns compassion without someone first showing them compassion. No one learns forgiveness without first receiving forgiveness. No one learns courage entirely on their own. Someone goes before us. Someone encourages us. Someone says, "You can do this." And eventually, almost without realizing it, we become one of the people who helps carry someone else along the way. That is how beloved community is built. Not through grand gestures, not through perfect people, but through ordinary acts of extraordinary faithfulness. Someone remembers your name. Someone notices when you've been missing. Someone sits beside you when words aren't enough. Someone makes you laugh on a day when laughter seems impossible. Someone brings soup after surgery. Someone watches the kids. Someone sings next to you, even though neither of you can quite carry the tune. Little by little, grain by grain, those moments accumulate until one day you realize something remarkable. You belong. And perhaps even more importantly, someone else belongs because you were here. It's one of the greatest gifts religious community has to offer. Certainly we come for worship, we come for music, we come for learning, we come to wrestle with life's big questions, but underneath all of those things is something even more fundamental. We come because we need one another. We need people who will celebrate our joys without envy. We need people who will carry our burdens when we are too tired to carry them ourselves. We need people who remind us who we are when we have forgotten. And eventually we discover that we are becoming those people for others too. And that is sacred work. It doesn't happen only inside these walls. Every act of kindness you offer, every conversation in which someone leaves feeling a little more hopeful, every injustice you helped confront, every stranger you welcome, those are grains of sand too. Those moments become part of someone else's hourglass. Sometimes we never know the impact we've had. Sometimes we never hear the rest of the story. But love has a remarkable way of continuing its work long after we've moved on. Which brings me to one final thought about our hourglass. When I first turned it over this morning, our attention was naturally drawn to the top. That's where all the sand was. That's where the action seemed to be. But now, if you've been watching, the bottom has become fuller, heavier, richer, more beautiful. Because not because anything new has been created, but because everything that was already there has been gathered together. Maybe that's what a faithful life looks like. Not a life that manages to hold on to every moment. Not a life without mistakes. Not a life without change, but a life that slowly gathers love, gathers wisdom, gathers courage. Until in the fullness of time, we can look back and discover that our lives have become rich beyond anything we ever imagined. As I was preparing this sermon, I found myself thinking about all of the communities that have shaped my own life. Some I was a part of for years, some for only a season. Every one of them has left something behind. A story, a lesson, a friendship, a different way of seeing the world. That's one of the beautiful things about ministry. I may eventually leave a congregation, but I never really leave empty-handed. Each community adds another handful of sand to the hourglass I carry with me. And I hope that's true for all of us. Whether we've known one another for decades or only a short while, our lives intersect for a reason. We leave fingerprints on one another's hearts. We become part of one another's stories. The sand keeps moving, but nothing that matters is ever truly lost. It is gathered. It becomes part of us. And then when the time comes, we turn the glass over once more and begin again. Hopefully a little wiser, hopefully a little kinder, hopefully a little more courageous. Hopefully loving just a little better than we did before. So my prayer for all of us is this. With each turn of the glass, may your life be filled with joy, with comfort, with wisdom, and with wonder. With each turn of the glass, may you discover new opportunities to learn, to forgive, to grow, and to begin again. With each turn of the glass, may you help fill the lives of others with kindness, with justice, with compassion, and with hope. And in the fullness of time, may you discover that the measure of a life has never been how much sand remained at the top, but how much love was gathered at the bottom. May you come to know your purpose, to love and to be loved. So may it be. Please rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 108 in your hardcover gray hymnal, How Can I Keep From Singing?
seated for a few announcements. If you have an announcement for a Sunday service, please send it to office@uucqc.org by noon, 12 o'clock noon on Thursday before the service. Music director Gates Thomas will give a multimedia presentation at 2 o'clock today at the German American Heritage Center titled Hamburger on the Mississippi, Davenport's Germans and the Musical Mecca of the West. He will first present an overview of the region's rich 19th century musical culture and then feature several key moments and performances from the 20th century. Gates will use film, archival photos, animation, and recorded music, including some startling musical artifacts, to illuminate our vibrant musical history and show how these historic origins still echo today. The German American Heritage Center is located just off the Centennial Bridge at the northwest corner of 2nd and Gaines in downtown Davenport. You are all invited to the ordination of Bridget Laflin into the United Universalist Ministry on Saturday, July 18th at 2 o'clock p.m. at the UU Society of Iowa City. If you would like more details, please see Bridget after service. Finally, let me draw your attention to the printed announcements printed on the back of your order of service. As Bridget extinguishes our chalice, let us join together in the unison reading by Amy Zucker Morgenstern, which appears in your order of service and on the video display. When we take fire from our chalice, it does not become less, it becomes more. And so we extinguish our chalice, but we take its light and warmth with us, multiplying their power by all of our lives and sharing it with the world.
This will be my last Sunday with you. My ordination is happening in July, as Erica said, and beginning in August, I will be the minister at the First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati. So I'd like to close our service today with one of my favorite benedictions by Reverend Wayne Arneson. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard. The path is never clear. The stakes are very high. Take courage. For deep down, there is another truth. You are not alone. Blessed be. Go in peace. Please remain seated for the postlude.